This is an example of a weather gasket that's on the outlet, but it also has been painted in place. So what we're going to have to do is get a sharp object, like a utility knife of some sort, and score the paint. Because if you try to lift this up without doing that, you're going to end up pulling up the paint, and it may pull up paint outside the area that you want. And it also could help to prevent the gasket from tearing. Oh, we got one more area right here in this corner. In today's video, the client wants to put a USB plug where there's a standard outlet right now, but they also want to have an outlet. Not a problem. They also want it GFCI protected. Not a problem. But in exploring the box, I noticed that this is an older box, so it's kind of small. It's about 9 cubic inches. And the new unit from Leviton, which is provided to us by the Home Depot Seeds program, says it needs 20 cubic inches. So the first dilemma is, can I actually get a 20-inch box in here? And I know that on the opposite side of this wall, there is another outlet. I'm hoping that they placed it on the other side. There's a beam here, so I'm hoping that the other outlet is there and that they did not place them back to back. So, taking off the cover plate, the gasket, I've just popped the screws off on the actual outlet, and I want to pull it forward to see if I can tell how much room I have behind this outlet. And at the moment it's a live outlet, so I don't want to mess around with putting metal in there or my finger and getting jolted. Just trying to assess what I have to work with visually. With the live wiring out of the way, I can put in a ruler and see that I have just a little over 2 inches, maybe 2 and a quarter. Now I need to know if I have anything further back. And now fortunately you can see that there is a hole back there. And I'm going to take this Phillips, and staying away from the energized outlet, I'm just going to poke back here. And there's paper insulation. And then I'm hitting an obstacle. And if I pull this out, now I have a length. So 1 3/4 plus the 2 1/4 that I have here gives me 4 inches to work with. So I can definitely pull this box out and get a much deeper box that will give me the 20 needed cubic inches. This is the device we're going to be installing, the Leviton Decora Plus Protection. It has 2 USB plugs that are rated at 4.8 amps, 24 watts. And the cool thing about them is that if your device uses less power, then it'll automatically adjust to the needs of your device. So it won't overpower your device. In addition to that, it's a GFCI protected outlet. So should it detect a surge that's going through to ground, it will cut out and protect an individual. Nice thing to have, especially in kitchens, bathroom, garages. This is a utility room, so it doesn't hurt to have one in here either. The bad thing about this is it's rather bulky. So it doesn't fit in a standard box that you'd find in most homes. Thus, we had to get this 23-inch cubic box. It says it needs a minimum of 20. So this is a slight overkill, but it will work just fine. And you want a rework box, not one for new construction, unless, of course, you have new construction. In our case, we have this old outlet, and we're going to replace that box with this one. One of the issues we're going to have to deal with is the fact that this is actually just a little bit wider than the metal box that's in here. So, and in addition to that, this box is nailed into a stud that's right here, okay? So obviously I can't go destroying this paneling as much as I hate this paneling. But anyway, there's a nail that goes across the top in the back and one at the bottom that goes to the stud. So I can remove that screw, expose the nail, and then see if I can bend the nail out. Maybe a cat's claw might help somehow, or maybe a hacksaw blade or jigsaw blade going in here and cutting off the nail. Somehow I have to get those two nails out before I can get the box out, before I can enlarge this opening a little bit so that I can get this box in, and then I can finally fit that inside the box. Now the nice thing, the good thing is that we have our clearly marked neutral and load, and there is a ground wire, so that'll make this installation easier. Plus, they're not wires passing through the box, so minimal clutter inside the box, that will help, and it'll make installation just a little bit easier. Almost forgot to mention, the two screws that you see inside, those are going to go into the stud that's along that side. And on this particular box, they actually glide up and down a little bit, which gives you some flexibility to adjust the placement of the box. We won't need any of that. We'll just use these two screws to secure the box to the wall. And then our wires come in through the back, and you don't punch this out as you just open it up, so that the wire goes in and is held in place. Does include a knockout, does include where you can bring wires in from the bottom. But again, we won't need any of that because none of the wires are passing through the box. They're just coming in and terminating at the outlet. Before we do anything else, let's talk about safety. You're working with 110 volts, 15 amps. If you're not comfortable, don't do it. Hire an electrician. It'll be expensive, but it'll be worth the cost, because at the end you'll be alive, you'll have a working outlet, and you won't be endangering yourself or your family. For those of you who do want to tackle the job, safety, always safety. So right now I have an open outlet, circuit is still on, and these are the two common devices that people use to test their outlet. This one you plug in and the lights come on to give you diagnostics. And people sometimes use this to determine if the power's been switched off to that particular circuit. The problem with this is that no lights can indicate that there's no power coming into it, or that it's an open hot, which if you stick your hand in there could kill you. So this is probably not the best tool. I prefer using a probe. You could also use a multimeter. And what I do is I first check it on a circuit that I know is hot. So that way I verify that the tool itself is actually working. So here's the neutral, and that's perfect. Come over to the load side, and we see that there's voltage here. I'm also going to check for the ground. There's no voltage there, and there's no voltage or current on the metal box. Then I will turn off the circuit breaker to this outlet, and then I will test again to make sure that there is no current coming into here. This is especially important if you have two sets of white and black wires coming into the box, because sometimes one of them will remain hot even though the other one has been turned off. Again, safety is important because it's your life. I've tripped the circuit breaker. I come over to the outlet, and my neutral is still quiet. There's nothing on the load side, nothing on the ground, nothing on the box. Now it's safe to put my hands in here and work on this. Since this box consists of just a single wire lead coming in here with a neutral, a black, and a ground, all I'm going to do is just disconnect that from this outlet. If there's a screw for the ground, the neutral and load are actually push-in, So I'm just going to cut those off. Once I get this out of here, I'm just going to move my wires out of the way and then take that screw out, lose this top plate, bottom plate. Gives me access to the nail. And then I need to figure a way just to destroy that nail, get it out of there so that I can get this box out of there. It's basically just demolition work. You just have to be careful not to damage the wall. During the demoing of this, I discovered that if you stick your cat paw, it's basically a mini crowbar, between the metal box and the stud, and you fulcrum this way, I was able to push the box away. There's a nail down there, and there's a nail up here. So I'm able to push the box over. Worst case scenario, I can actually just push this box and just let it fall, because the wire comes in from the top and it's already loose. So I'm going to get my wire and I can just leave this box inside the wall cavity. I don't have to necessarily remove it if it makes my life easier. So just a simple note. Originally, I was trying to bend the nails so that I could get a hold of them and try to get them from the left side of the box. But pushing the box that way certainly helps. So just something to try if you're in this type of situation where you need to get an old metal box out. In the end, I was able to slide the nails off the box, and then I used a pair of lineman pliers to pivot the box out, leaving the wires behind. With the old box out of the way, either dropped in or pulled out like I did. Now, this is bigger, we know that. So what you're going to do is just place it over, and with a pencil, trace an outline of where you need to cut. And then to actually cut this, well, you have several choices. You can go with a Dremel tool, a multi-tool, perhaps even a chisel, hacksaw. Basically, you don't want to use anything coarse. I think a jigsaw might vibrate this paneling too much. So I think I happen to have a Dremel, so I'm going to try that. And just make sure you don't cut the wires, move them out of the way. Just be conscious where they're at. You want to use a fine-tooth blade, whatever tool you use. Otherwise, you're going to end up breaking off chunks and causing more damage than you want to. Because you don't want the wood splintering out to the areas that won't be covered by the outlet. It dawned on me that my Dremel is not battery operated, and I don't have another extension cord. So I'm going to use this Ryobi saw, and I found that it has a fine tooth blade and it's battery operated. So let me turn off the safety and see if I can make a fine cut into this wood. And that's as far as I need to go in that direction. Now going up. Alrighty, now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now you see this is partially ripped out because the old box just protruded and caught. So that actually can come out because there's the pencil line. So making sure I don't catch the wires that are up behind it, I'm going to come in and see if I can just get rid of that. Yeah, got to be careful because it could rip more than you want. And that's the problem with using power tools. I'm going to try going up and see if I can just minimize the material that I'm damaging. Okay, so I'm good coming up. I'll need to cut across, cut this way, and come down. So, but at first I'm going to deal with getting rid of the excess wood here and here, and then we'll deal with that. Here's what we were able to accomplish with that saw. I got a little splintering there, some splintering down there. I tried some diagonal cutters to help get rid of some of the material without doing any more damage. And finally, I got an extension cord. So I'm going to try the Dremel tool and see if it helps. We'll see what it does as soon as it touches the wood, because it's very thin plywood and it's just splintered from old age. So the hard part will be here, because as you're cutting across here, it wants to rip out. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. The Dremel provided a much cleaner cut, so that might be worth the effort if you don't have like a multi-tool or something else that you think might work. Let us know, by the way, in the comments if you think you have a better solution than this. After some fine-tuning with the Dremel tool, we check our sizing, and it looks like it's going to fit. So we want to make sure that the screws are going to be on this side, because that's where the stud is. We got to make sure to pull our cable through, and all we do is push this down, and you may need a screwdriver to do that. There you go, you see? And then you slip the wire. You don't want to break this off, because the wire goes through and then gets hung up on it so it can't pull out. So that's what you want. So if you break it off, you'll defeat the purpose of having these tabs. And then we should be able to push our wires through. And you should pull it to maybe 1/2 inch into the sleeve. Okay, there we go. So now we push the box in. Be careful, the tips on this are really sharp, so if you got your finger on the right side of the box, you could get cut. So now we're just going to push this flush to the wall and then drive these screws in. This wants to push out a little bit, probably because of the insulation that's back there. So I'm going to hold it in the flush position, put a impact driver to the screw, and hopefully drive this home. So the problem is this panel will slide. So I need it to get to bite into the wood, or I could pull the box back out and remove the insulation. Okay, then we catch the bottom screw. All right. So it's flush. Now all we need to do is make our white to white, black to black, ground to ground onto our new USB GFCI outlet. Unlike other outlets, this actually has pigtails coming off of it. Usually you have push-in connectors or screw-ons. That's not the case with this device. As a matter of fact, you have 5 pieces of wire coming out of it, which can be confusing. And that's just because of the way the GFCI works. What's important to know is, in our case, we have a neutral and a load that's coming in and the ground, right? And that's it. It's a very simple outlet. It's probably at the end of the run, so that's why you get that. So you have a white and you have a black, and that is on the line side. And that's what you want to hook up to. Now below that, there's one that's called the load side. You only use the low side if there was another wire coming in here carrying the electricity down to another outlet. So let's say that's the fuse box, it feeds this, and then this goes to one more outlet, then that would be the case where you would have to use the line and the load. The load would take power to the next load downstream. That's not our scenario here because we're at the end. So all we need to do is hook up the white, black, and ground. And actually the order that you're going to do them in is ground, neutral, then load. It's just a safety thing. I know there's no power in the outlet, but that's just the better way to do it. And then these two, you're going to leave capped and just out of the way. And that's why they're actually taped together with yellow tape. And that's the big difference in wiring these units in, and it can be a little bit confusing. So just remember, if all you have is one, then all you need to do is use the line. The load is to carry power to the next outlet. In our case, we don't need that. So we have our ground, and you have to supply your own wire nut, and it's not coming loose. Ignore the 2 load wires because we're going with our line wires. I twist it because it's stranded. It's not a core wire. As I pull that piece of insulation off. Some people will twist these together. I just put them on and then let the cap do all the real work. If your code is different, then follow that. And again, these wires are not coming out. Then we do the same thing with the black. Use the insulation to twist the strands together as you're pulling it off. I line them up. And if you want, you can add some electrical tape, but these are so secure in here that I'm not going to bother with that. So now all we do is push the wires down and up, sort of like an accordion style, so that you can pack them back into the box. And being that this is a 23 cubic inch box, you should be able to get everything in there fairly easy because there's no other wires coming in. If you had a second pair, that might present a little bit more of a challenge. But I'm bending the wire down, then back up, down and up. Same thing with the ground. I'm going to push them to the back of the box. These loose ones, I'm going to try to keep on the bottom. Push those to the back of the box. And then loop back up. And everything's going to fit in nice. So now we drive home with a number 2 Phillips, the top screw for the box. And what I recommend is don't drive it all the way. Attach it, then attach the bottom, and then kind of just spread the load between the two. So you do one screw part of the way and then the other. You know, getting old kind of sucks. There you go. And then you just keep on doing this until you're flush. And then will we actually be able to turn on the power, test it, and then put the cover on it. Because, well, obviously we won't be able to use the old cover, so we'll have to use a Decora cover, which is a separate purchase. We switch the power back on. We have power to the unit, but if you go to plug in your outlet tester, you'll notice no reading. Let's try down here at the bottom. No reading. Let's try my probe. Nothing. Why is that? Because it comes triggered already so that you need to turn it on. So hit the reset button, and you'll see that there's a green light here. That means the unit is active and functioning. So if we stick in our little plug tester, it tells us that the outlet is wired correctly on both ends. Of course it is. And if we can get our probe in here, we see that there is voltage on that side, nothing on this side. There's no high voltage on that. Yes, you see? And then sometimes it's a little sensitive and it picks up voltage where there isn't any. Okay? But now the real test is, can I charge my phone on this? We bring in my phone, we plug it in, and indeed it's charging, and it says it'll take an hour and 17 minutes with a 37% charge at the moment. So that's the high rate, the maximum this unit can do. So yes, it's adapted to current and allowing this Samsung device to take the full load. So it works. Let's try the other side. And that works. All that's left to do is put the cover on and you're done. And you've got outlet protection in case there's a ground fault. You can protect somebody's life. And you got 2 USB ports for charging your pads, your tablets, your phones. Well, this was a more challenging installation due to the fact that we had to remove the undersized box and retrofit a new box into it. You saw that because we were at the end of the run, it was an easy, just black to black, white to white, ground to ground type of installation. And now you have a lot of flexibility and protection at your outlet. If you found this video interesting or useful, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, join the subscription team. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching.